November 8th, 2016 was Election Day, a day of triumph or tragedy, depending on who you ask. And as you may recall, Hillary Clinton was going up against Donald Trump. If you can think back that far, you might remember that back in those days, before Chinese-style COVID lockdowns became a pretext for transforming the entire system of elections in this country, people actually, went to the polls in large numbers on Election Day. They didn't mail in their ballots or hand them over to a political operative. They actually showed up and voted. So that morning, a left-wing activist named Christina Wong decided to play a practical joke on all of these Election Day voters. She went on Twitter writing, quote, "Hey, Trump supporters, skip poll lines at election 2016 and text in your vote. Text votes are legit, or vote tomorrow on Super Wednesday." Now, Wong also uploaded a video on Twitter telling Trump supporters, once again, that Election Day in reality was on November 9th, which was a day later than the actual Election Day. Watch.
Hey everybody, this is Christina Wong, and I'm coming out. I'm a Trump supporter, and I just want to remind all my fellow Chinese Americans for Trump, people of color for Trump, to vote. Vote for Trump on Wednesday, November 9th. Really important day. We're going to show this country who's boss, and that's our man, Donald Trump. So don't forget to vote Donald Trump on November 9th.
Now, that video that you just saw there is still available on Christina Wong's Twitter feed. She has not taken it down. And watching that video, it's clear to any reasonable person that it's a joke. No Trump supporter is going to get tricked by a random woman on Twitter into thinking that Election Day is one day later. No one's going to be fooled into thinking that they can text their vote in anonymously for any candidate at all. And in any event, if somehow a voter did fall for Christina Wong's shtick, then, honestly, they're so stupid that they shouldn't be voting anyway. And that could be why the DOJ never charged Christina Wong with any crime at all. She was engaging in political satire or trolling or mockery or whatever you want to call it. And whatever you do call it, it was protected by the First Amendment, obviously. But if that's the case, then it's very hard, in fact, impossible to justify the DOJ's approach to a different person, a man named Douglas Mackey. On social media, Mackey used the online alias of Ricky Vaughn. And exactly 1 week before Christina Wong posted her meme on Twitter, Douglas Mackey posted this meme. And the image reads, "Avoid the line, vote from home." Now, Douglas Mackey posted this image on social media a full week before Election Day. And at the time he posted this on his Twitter account, Mackey's profile picture depicted a man in a MAGA hat wearing a Bane mask. So it was not exactly a credible announcement about the upcoming election, nor was it trying to be. It was obviously a joke. Exactly the same joke that Christina Wong told. And at the time, everybody recognized this. More than 4 years went by and no one said a word about it. No harm, no foul, no damage was done. Not an issue. But then in late January 2021, just a week after Joe Biden was inaugurated and his handlers took control of the federal government at DOJ, everything changed. Douglas Mackey was suddenly hit with federal charges. As the New York Times reported, Mackey was accused of, quote, spreading disinformation online that tricked Democratic voters in 2016 into trying to cast their ballots by phone instead of going to the polls. The Fed said that Mackey had, quote, coordinated with co-conspirators to spread memes on Twitter, falsely claiming that Hillary Clinton's supporters could vote by sending a text message to a specific phone number. Now, I want you to take a moment to reflect on that phrase. Coordinated with co-conspirators to spread memes on Twitter. MSNBC's coverage at the time was just as breathless. Here's how they covered the crimes of this dangerous meme-spreading edgelord. Watch.
A notorious Twitter troll was arrested on federal charges of election interference. Douglas Mackey, also known by his online alter ego Ricky Vaughn, is accused of a voter disinformation campaign during the 2016 election. The arrest represents what could be a big change in how the federal government fights election interference. NBC News investigative reporter Brandy Zadrozny joins us now. So, Brandy, first of all, tell us about the election disinformation campaign that Mackey is accused of orchestrating. What did he allegedly do?
So, Mackey is accused of having used Twitter to coordinate with other trolls in these private spaces, private group chats. One was called War Room. And he's accused of spreading disinformation, specifically that voters could cast their ballots via social media and text. This one was specifically aimed at Black and Latino voters. You could tell because he used memes with Black people and ones written in Spanish, allegedly. Now, basically, what this guy did is what we're all really familiar with from the Russian internet agency. They created fake posts. They said that, in these posts that certain celebs were on the Trump train, for instance, right? Or they created fake advertising campaigns for Hillary Clinton where they were like, we're going to draft your daughters into the armed forces. Or, like we just said, the lies about when and where people can vote. And just like the Russian campaign, we've been saying forever, there's a homegrown alt-right disinformation campaign, and it was aimed at electing Donald Trump.
So Douglas Mackey is using the same tactics as Vladimir Putin. This guy with 50,000 Twitter followers, along with Vladimir Putin, is the reason that Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton. That's what they're saying. They don't even realize how ridiculous any of this sounds, or they do realize and they don't care. And that's how determined they are to come up with reasons why Hillary Clinton lost the 2016 election, something that they still are grappling with. What's funny about that clip, aside from the total absurdity of the whole thing, is that this week, NBC's disinformation reporters just spent an entire day lying about a hospital bombing in Gaza. They told you Israel bombed a hospital and killed 500 people, when in reality, it looks like some terrorists in Gaza put a crater in a parking lot. The NBC disinformation experts who lied about the incident are the same people telling you they're very concerned about a meme posted on Twitter about the 2016 election. So they're complete frauds as usual. At the same time, however, they are effective. The Biden DOJ put Douglas Mackey on trial more than a half decade after his conspiring to spread memes. And they did it using the same law, 18 U.S.C. Section 241, that they're accusing Donald Trump of violating. This law makes it criminal to engage in a conspiracy to deprive Americans of their right to vote. And this was a law that Congress passed to prevent the KKK from intimidating blacks at the polls. It's not something that you would think would apply to a meme on Twitter. And now it's being used to jail everyone from a former president to a random guy with 50,000 Twitter followers who posted a meme. Because they are determined to crush political dissent, whether it comes from Donald Trump or a Twitter troll or anybody else. Everyone here at the office loves the Genucel dark spot corrector. We talk about it all the time. You might be asking what this product even does. Well, if you have sunspots, dark spots, discoloration, or dry skin, Genucel's dark spot corrector will help those blemishes disappear. Kimberly from Youngstown, Ohio says, quote, "My appearance has improved so much since using Genucel. I love all my Genucel products and my skin looks younger. Now it's your turn to feel like Kimberly, but hurry because this sale is ending very soon." A lot of young men write into my show asking what they can do to meet women who share their values and beliefs. Well, the answer is take care of your ugly, disgusting face. Take advantage of Genucel's most popular package, which includes the beloved dark spot corrector. This package also includes Genucel's classic under-eye treatment. You'll get all the products for almost 70% off. Genucel is so confident in their products that you can try them for yourself completely risk-free. If you don't see immediate results, you get your money back. So go to Genucel.com/Walsh. Start looking years, even decades younger tomorrow. Say hello to the best skin you've ever had at Genucel.com/Walsh. That's Genucel.com/Walsh. So how did Mackey's trial go? As you could probably guess, it wasn't exactly a fair and impartial proceeding. For one thing, Joe Biden's prosecutors hid the identity of a key witness in the case. This witness, known as Mr. Microchip, was important because to prove that a conspiracy exists, you need at least two people, obviously. So the feds needed Mr. Microchip to testify that he had engaged in a conspiracy with Mackey. But in a remarkable, if predictable turn of events, the DOJ convinced a judge to keep Mr. Microchip's identity under seal. And perhaps more importantly, the DOJ also convinced the judge to issue an order preventing Mackey's attorneys from cross-examining Mr. Microchip about his extensive dealings with the FBI, which dated back at least to the year 2018. In his communications with the FBI, the witness reportedly acknowledged that there was no grand scheme to sway election results, but none of that could come into evidence. It wasn't brought up at trial, wasn't allowed into the trial. The jury also wasn't allowed to hear that Hillary Clinton's own staff didn't think that any of Douglas Mackey's memes mattered during the 2016 election. On the other hand, prosecutors were more than welcome to question Mackey about his views on women's suffrage, his opinions on whether immigrants should be allowed to vote. All of those opinions that have nothing to do with the case were allowed to come into evidence to rile up the jury in New York. And here's another important point to keep in mind. This is maybe the most important point. Prosecutors never produced a single piece of evidence to prove that a single vote was actually lost due to Mackey's meme. The jury did not hear from a single witness who testified that they text their vote and then didn't vote for real because of it. There were people who texted the number because they were curious about it or whatever. They were playing along with the joke. But there was no evidence or any reason to believe that any actual real-world harm was caused by this meme. Not that preventing idiots from voting would actually be harmful, in my opinion. That would be a great public service, I think. But the point is that there's no evidence at all that such a thing happened. If he was trying to trick people, it didn't work. Nothing happened. There was no harm done. And yet, predictably, Mackey was convicted. And the other day, he was just sentenced by this federal judge to 7 months in federal prison for a meme. 7 months. That's the punishment for mocking Hillary Clinton voters with a meme, which is essentially, a modern-day political cartoon. It is the equivalent of someone being put in prison for a political cartoon. And to put that in context, 7 months is a longer prison stint than a BLM rioter received in 2020 for threatening to murder a police officer with an AR-15. That officer was guarding a courthouse that the rioters were setting on fire, but this rioter named Dakota Means was sentenced to probation, meaning no time in prison whatsoever. Dakota Means, by the way, went on to murder his infant child. Now, as horrifying as that story is, there are many more like it. Pretty much every BLM terrorist from 2020 received a lighter sentence than Douglas Mackey did for posting a meme. And most of them received no sentence at all and were never even charged with anything. And that tells us a couple of things. First of all, it tells us that we are led by tyrants. And if there's one thing tyrants despise more than anything else, it's being mocked. You could disagree with them, and most of the time they'll shrug and bury you with an avalanche of their own propaganda. But if you mock them, that's really how you incur their wrath. And they will go to tremendous lengths, years after the fact, to make sure you're destroyed for it. The devil cannot endure to be mocked, as Thomas More said, and neither can the current regime running our country. And those two things are certainly related. The other lesson from the Douglas Mackey case is that it's a symptom of a much larger problem. Douglas Mackey could only be convicted in a country that no longer cares about basic principles of democracy, which of course includes the freedom of speech. And indeed, it's becoming clear that our country no longer cares about any of those principles. As Yahoo just reported, quote, a large portion of Americans on both sides of the aisle favor getting rid of democracy and imposing violence on their political opponents, among other authoritarian measures, according to a new poll. 31% of Donald Trump supporters and 24% of President Joe Biden supporters said democracy is no longer viable and an alternative system should be tried, according to an October poll from the University of Virginia's Center for Politics. Now, poll results like this aren't surprising because every day we see new examples of the disparate, unequal application of the laws in this country. The other day, pro-Hamas protesters stormed a Senate office building demanding a ceasefire in the Middle East. And they obstructed lawmakers on their way to work. They prevented media reports from taking place. It was an insurrection. Here's what it looked like. Now, what we know for sure, not that I have a crystal ball, but I can still look into the future and prophesy that not a single one of those rioters will be placed in solitary confinement by Joe Biden's DOJ. They're not going to face 20-year prison sentences, just like the women who stormed Capitol buildings during the Kavanaugh hearings. None of these pro-Hamas degenerates will face any consequence whatsoever. And that's because they didn't mock the people in power. They didn't put their feet up on Nancy Pelosi's desk. They didn't smile while parading Pelosi's lectern around the Capitol building. So in the eyes of the Biden DOJ, they're not a threat. This ad hoc system of law enforcement has gone on for so long that a critical mass of Americans have lost faith in our system entirely. And why shouldn't they lose faith in it? What is there to have faith in? The appearance of legitimacy, as well as actual legitimacy, is non-existent in our judicial system. 50 years ago, jailing a political cartoonist would have been unthinkable in a supposedly free country. Yet it just happened in this country. And the response has been basically a collective shrug. Republicans in Congress haven't come out in defense of Douglas Mackey. In fact, I'm not aware of a single elected Republican who has said anything about this. And maybe there have been a couple. I don't keep track of every single one of them. But just ask yourself that. How many elected Republicans have come out to say anything about the fact that Biden's DOJ just put someone in jail, in federal prison, for 7 months for an anti-Hillary Clinton meme? For the most part, there has been no outrage from either party. So Douglas Mackey will serve his sentence for mocking his masters. He'll report to federal prison for his memes. And because no one stood up in his defense, the fear is that very soon he'll have a lot of company. Hey, YouTube, thanks for listening to the show. If you'd like access to my full show with no ads, you should go to dailywire.com and use promo code Walsh to get 2 months free on all annual plans. See you there.